To us, magic sounds like this extraordinary thing, pulling a rabbit out of the hat, coming out of nowhere. But it's here, it's real, and the more that we are open to the unseen, to the energies of this world, to abundance and manifesting, to calling in and growing, the more we'll be able to call magic into our lives. Join me as I share stories, wisdom, and curiosity around connecting with your higher frequency, tapping into the synchronicities of the universe, and opening up to the unseen possibilities that this world has to offer. I am your host, Dayna Faye, and this is the Ordinary Magic Podcast. Welcome back to the Ordinary Magic Podcast. Today I have on Kelly Scholz. She is a local Reiki and yoga practitioner and also a co-owner of Wishing Tree Studio in Oregon, Wisconsin. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, thanks, Dayna.
I'm so excited for you to be here and to give the listeners a background on Kelly. She retired from a 30-year nursing career in 2016 to pursue what really made her happy, which is teaching yoga and practicing Reiki. And since then, she's opened up a yoga studio, the Wishing Tree Studio, and you have a thriving Reiki practice. And might I add, from my point of view, you made it through the pandemic as a studio owner and like a new one. So congratulations.
Brand new. Yes. Thanks, Dayna. That was exciting. That was not an easy feat.
No, because didn't you open right before that time?
About 5 months. And when we were online longer than we were actually open, that was just very surreal.
Wow. In hindsight, did being forced to be online help you now in your current business of Wishing Tree Studio, or are you more grown in your like local roots here?
We have grown in our local roots, yes. And we have also kept probably about half of our classes, if not a little bit more, online as well. So they're blended classes, and which is what is the other cool part of it. So our snowbirds can do yoga still with us when they head to Arizona. And we have a teacher that teaches from Greece. And our snowbird instructors can teach when they're in Arizona or wherever they're at. And we also have a substitute teacher in Oregon State.
I love that. What a modern way to run your business. You're really molding into like where this world is headed, is that technology is bringing us all together all across the world.
Right. It's really fun to watch and fascinating too.
That is so cool. So tell me about your life experience of going from a 30-year nursing career, which is kind of more a sciencey, traditional career, and then moving into focusing on healing modalities, the healing arts. How did that happen? Kind of take us through that.
Yes. So as a child or a product of the 70s in a small town outside of Chicago that was fairly conservative, I was really fairly rigid in my ways, right? This is how things had to go. And I became a nurse. I loved it. I loved that piece. I did love taking care of folks. And I worked in a clinic for 20 of those 30 years in a pacemaker defibrillator clinic, which is a very niche position to be in. But I always knew that when the nurse that I worked with, when she retired, and she was about 14 years older than I was, I'm like, I'm going to retire too. I don't want to do this without her. Completely tongue-in-cheek, right? It's like, that will never happen. The benefits are too good in nursing. It's a good gig. It's solid. And so along that path, about 4 years before I retired, there was a bit of a crisis in my life. The rigidity that I had set up and raising a son who graduated from high school and did not follow what mom and dad thought that he should do. You go to college, you figure out what you're going to do maybe in life there, you follow this plan. That was not happening. And I lost it. That, I say, was my healing crisis, because I went to a really dark place. And in the course of that darkness, trying to figure out how to help him, or as part of my life lesson in this world, I was going to be the fixer and the savior. And I started getting energy work done. in that process and, never had heard of Reiki, but I went to this woman and knew that after she worked with me, I felt a little bit better. I was in this place of confining myself. I was cocooning. I wasn't, I was going to work. I was coming home. I wasn't leaving the house. I was afraid what I was going to find when I got home. And I had a friend ask me if I wanted to take a Reiki class on a Saturday afternoon. Never had heard of Reiki, and I thought she must have meant rolfing. That was the only R word that I had heard. I didn't go online. I didn't Google it. I'm like, sure, I will go to this thing on Saturday with you. And I got there, and the books are on the table, and it's this purple cover manual with these hands on it with the light. What is this? She starts to talk about this, and I said, wait. You mean I'm going to be able to do this on people? It was like this light bulb went off. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. I couldn't believe that I was going to be able to do this. I thought you were born with these gifts. I thought you were born with intuition, that you just knew this. I had these small town ideas about what energy work was. And a month later, I signed up for the next class. I took Reiki 2. And at that time, my Reiki teacher said to me, she said, in 3 years, you will be doing this. You will be doing this full time. You will leave nursing. And I said, no, you're crazy. You are crazy. that will not happen. And by 2016 was about 3 years after I got my Reiki master teacher in 2013, 2016. I said, I'm too busy. I was working half-time in nursing, going around Madison teaching yoga classes, had clients coming to my house on my days off to do Reiki. And I said, why am I doing this? Why am I doing all of this? Something needs to give, and it's not going to be what I love to do. I mean, what I really love to do, what my passion is. So in December 2016, I retired from nursing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that your story is almost like you fell into it. Like someone just invited you to this thing. You didn't even know it was going to be Reiki. And then it was totally meant for you. Now, is the friend who invited you, are they a Reiki practitioner at all? Or do they just use it for their own?
No, they just use it for their own. She was big into the kennel in the Humane Society in Milwaukee, where Reiki's used a lot there. So that's how she found it. Yeah.
How lovely. And for the listeners who have never heard of Reiki before, can you explain what it is in your own words?
Yeah, my Reiki elevator speech.
Yes.
It's really interesting because when I take this out into public places that, I've done this at fairs. I've set up a chair and people come, when I've taught a yoga class, I would, do you want to do a table here? And I said, sure. And what am I going to do? Well, I'll give people 5 minutes of Reiki. So I say, what is this thing that you're going to do to me? And I said, just sit down and let me put my hands on you. And then you tell me if you can describe it. And I would say, out of 100 people, probably 20 people had tears in their eyes when I finished. So, the definition of Reiki is universal life force energy that's coming from the universe. And I can't do anything to change it. I just turn on my little Reiki hands and put them on a person where I feel called to place my hands, and then it goes. Yeah. And it goes to where it needs to go. It flows naturally.
And it's intuitively led through you.
I intuitively put my hands where I feel like a person needs a little help. But I just let the Reiki work.
Beautiful. Yeah. And you don't actually know this, Kelly, but I reached out to you because similar to you, I have kind of fallen into Reiki. I seek every other spiritual modality, but I somehow ended up at my first Reiki attunement back in 2016.
Oh, wow.
I think. And to be honest, I was just starting on kind of the energetic path. So I didn't believe in it. I was like, what the heck? I don't know what's going on here, you know? And so it took a while, but then I got my second attunement and I am actually about to get my master
Yay.
level. And I wanted to talk to you more about Reiki
Mm-hmm.
because it's so, like you kind of said, it's especially I grew up in a small town as well in Wisconsin, and we didn't have any of this language when we were younger, none of
No.
it. So even though I'm so steeped in it, and I did Reiki on a friend 2 weeks ago. And like you said, this energy just flowed. I found myself saying prayers out loud for them that I wasn't expecting to do. I just completely let the universal energy flow through. But yet, if I would see a stranger at a conference, I would probably be like, I don't know, just sit down and let me put my hands on you.
Funny, I taught this class and I need to do it again, actually. It's one of the reasons I got into yoga is because I felt like that was a great combo to do with Reiki, to set up a class in a restorative way and go around and give everybody a little bit of Reiki. And yeah, it's really powerful. People walk out and it's like they come in fearful and not sure what to expect. And they leave and they're like, I don't know what you did, but I felt all these things. And it's like,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a very powerful class. So when did you find yoga? Was that earlier on in your life?
That was earlier on. So, in this trying to find me or trying to find my body, I did Ironman triathlons in 2007, 9, and then again in 10. And after the first one, I was like, okay, this old body needs some help and you need to recover. But I was a very hard hitting kind of girl. And so I did gym yoga and I sought that out every week. It was like, it was only offered once a week. And I'm like, I love this. I want more of this. And so then the hot yoga was a big thing. And so I did some hot yoga and then another studio opened up in town and I started going there. It wasn't so hot and it was a little more my style. And the more I went, the better I felt. There was a reason I was doing all the Ironman things. I mean, I grew up in that small town. There's a lot of trauma in my life. And so there's a lot of deep-seated anger in there. And finding yoga was one way to start moving my body in a way that was kind and compassionate to me and started opening up other things. And this is a path and a process that is definitely not linear, but that's how I got into yoga. And I found Reiki in 2012 and I was doing yoga kind of around the same time. And when I started thinking about teaching yoga, the instructor there who taught yoga teachers started talking about energy, like energetically after the yoga class, my body would buzz and I would feel like Reiki flowing through my body. I'm like, what is he doing that is causing that? Right? What is he doing that is bringing that out in my body? And so then I signed up for the immersion in 2015. So I did 2 rounds of 100-hour classes that summer. And yeah, changed my life. Changed my
And
life.
did you figure out what the secret was to what he was
There
doing?
is definitely a secret to what he was doing, how he sequenced poses and how he instructed, how he got you to engage in your body. It brought out the body energetics in me. And, and then the Shavasanas were amazing. One Shavasana, I felt like tar was coming off of my heart. And I'm like, wow, this is cool.
What would you say to the yoga students who are listening who are like, I don't have that experience, Kelly?
Come to Wishing Tree Studio.
Yes, come to Wishing Tree Studio. Because I imagine it's part the teacher and also
Yeah.
part the student willing to be engaged.
Yes, you're so spot on, Dayna. I think there's a progression as a student. I started out in that gym yoga, and then as I found Reiki and as I grew as a student, I started seeking that deeper awareness in my yoga practice and engaging. You can sit there and go through the poses, and I'm doing yoga and I'm getting a nice stretch, or you can really engage your body during that. So think about what you're doing in class. Are you just there to get the stretch and have the social time, which is awesome. That's fantastic. Yes. Do it more and do it more and go, oh, wow, yeah, there's something about this, right? If I find this deeper engagement, the hugging and muscles and grounding down through your feet. And so, yeah.
And maybe paying attention to the emotions that are flowing out of you. Like you said, I felt anger in
Right.
Shavasana once, like, so when you feel an emotion, instead of trying to run away from it, sit in it or go through your pose while
Right.
being the witness of it.
There's that
Right?
somatic piece to it. I can remember being in pigeon pose, and this was kind of in the midst of my, I like this yoga thing. I'm in pigeon. She read a poem, and I just burst out in tears. I'm like, where is this
Oh,
coming from? Right. And well, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So, yeah, it is being aware and being the witness to those emotions. It's like, well, I don't know what this is from, and boy, this is happening, and that's okay. I think that's how we kind of, get to the core of what's going on in our body.
so having a bit of surrender to just allowing it to
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. With so many things.
Yes, with life, right? So when you had mentioned before, I didn't even know there was intuition when I was younger. Let's bring it back to trying to help listeners understand that everybody has intuition. Everybody has Reiki energy. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
can get into a yoga pose and feel energy sourcing through their body. But yet if we haven't ever heard of it or haven't been exposed to it, it's hard to really grasp because it's invisible. Looking back on your earlier life, especially in nursing, now that you know what it feels like, do you feel like it was always there and you just
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize?
I do feel like it was always there. And part of me maybe didn't want to really think about it and believe it, right? I thought that, only who are the mediums on TV, right? Or the woman who really inspired me the most is a woman who communicated with my animals. And I read about her story, and I'm like, wow, she knew about this. She had this all her life. So I was very intrigued by it all, and always believed that it was there. I never disbelieved. And then coming to my own, even when I started Reiki, I would just do it for the purpose of helping the person on the table. And I was getting these, you know how it is. You're kind of quiet maybe when you're working with somebody, at least at the beginning. I was very quiet because that was the rule. You were quiet with Reiki.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm getting these strange thoughts in my head. I'm like, what is this? This isn't mine. I don't think this is mine. This is an interesting thing. And I had a coach one time tell me, ask if you can start writing these things down and just kind of take notes while you're having the person on the table and then see if it resonates. And so I started doing that. And oh my gosh, it was like, well, yes, yeah, I had this dog, or someone did, the stories were incredible. Yes, I had a horse named Rocket when I was a kid that I used to ride when I was 8. That was my best friend that I never even knew. I go, there's a horse and I think the name is Rocket. And so it's like these affirmations, right? It's like, yeah, I'm getting these hits that are real. And so it came from a very mind place, right? Our society teaches us, we are so mental. We come from our mind so much. And I think that that's maybe one thing that happened during COVID, right? At least for me, it got me more into my heart and into my body. And I think shifting and coming more into my heart and listening from here and here, right, has been what's really helped me in my Reiki practice. I can put my hands on a person now and I can feel it in my body almost immediately what's going on with them. Yeah.
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 Versus I'm at the beginning and I have to meditate, ground, do the incense, do all that. It takes me 10 minutes to get there.
Keep those things, because I do that too still. Keep those things. Those are good
Yeah.
practices to have, especially that grounding practice. For someone like me, I was so in my mind and also in spirit. I wanted to be in spirit because that's where all the answers are, right? And spirit has the answers. Oh man, yeah, it's a great place to escape to, but the more grounded you can get, the more you can feel your body on the earth. It's that polarity, it's that pull, it's this groundedness that also helps you ascend higher and connect deeper with spirit.
Wow. I needed to hear that for sure. So for those of you who are going through your spiritual journey right now, what Kelly mentioned is once you do start connecting with spirit, I mean, it is really fun to kind of escape to that world.
Mhm.
And what was kind of your path with that as you were a student and now in your practice many, many years in? Like you said, you came back into your heart and you have more trust in your body.
Well, my yoga practice definitely has helped with that. My meditation practice has helped with that. I've worked with different plants that have helped me with that as well. And so that has helped heal a lot.
Do it?
Working through that trauma, and also, I would say, helping to assimilate the trauma almost. It's like, it's like seeing it through a different lens. Oh, yes, that did happen. So there's a period of time I forgot about it all. And during COVID, I did a vision quest. And in my vision quest, in the preparation for that, my childhood and my experiences started to bubble up. And it's like, oh,
Mm.
that thing happened, or that happened. And it's like, that kind of formed you in some way, didn't it? And reconciling those things, right? And working through that and feeling it in my body to release it. So we're doing those kinds of practices really help bring me back into my body, because I think during a lot of those times when I was younger, I escaped. Right. I went to spirit because that was a
Mm.
safe place to be. Being in spirit in a way was a safe place to be, but I wasn't grounded enough to realize that that's where I had headed to, you know.
Yeah. And I know that right now the world is going through a great
Mhm.
change and people's consciousness is really raising fast. So there's a lot of people out there that are having these energetic things come up. And maybe it is similar to your experience of like, oh boy, I'm still holding on to this energy from when I was
Right.
younger, a little bit of trauma that I went through. I know that, you made changes in your life professionally, but also personally
Hmm.
too. And was it like your soul just led you there? Did it feel like you had no other choice but to make these big changes? Do you feel comfortable sharing, about how old you were, where you were at in your
Yeah,
life?
sure. So, oh yeah, there were some major changes. So I'm 59, and I knew in my 40s that I was in an unhappy marriage, but I stuck around because it was safe. And I didn't want to, break apart the family because our son was struggling so much. And so in 2019, started the build out for the yoga studio. So that was another good thing to do, to ignore the marriage, right? I'm in this unhappy marriage. I'm doing the build out of the studio. Can't do anything about this marriage right now, because you're busy with this. And the weekend that we opened the studio, I'd been there for 3 days, basically nonstop. And my business partner said, go home, take a break, get some dinner. And I come home and it's Sunday afternoon and my husband's not home. And he was a big golfer. And he came home and he was just very drunk. And I'm asking myself, what are you doing here? And that was that was the straw. I'm like, you're doing this, you're doing these things to better yourself, right? I'm trying to elevate myself and shift in my world, and this is dragging me down. Because at that point I decided I was leaving. And so, boom, I left in November of 2019. And
Wow.
then COVID came shortly after that, right? Before I left, we had had a deep conversation about, where I was at and where he was at. And that's funny. Again, we talk about manifestation. In April of 2019, we had this deep conversation about our marriage a bit. And it's like, what's going on with it? And I said it in April of 2019 in Scottsdale, Arizona. I said, you have about 6 months. Completely forgot about that conversation. And after I, move out and I sit and I reflect, it's like, wow, 6 months happened and your guides came in and said, all
Yeah.
right, here you go. Here it is on a platter. Yeah, you need to move forward alone.
Yes, yes.
Mm,
And I want the listeners to hear that it's a process, your
yeah.
intuition, that if it's still emotional, or if you're still kind of like, I don't know, or you have to give someone 6 months, or whatever process you're walking through, there is a point when your guides give you clarity and you just have this feeling in your
Yes.
body that it's just like,
Yeah.
I feel neutral about it. I have clarity.
There was, yeah, there was a charge, but it was definitely clarity, right? I mean, it wasn't an easy thing. It was not it was the hardest thing I did in my life, probably, is walking away from that marriage. But what I have found, and I've been in one other relationship since then, and that was, so I was in a marriage and I stayed about 10 years longer than I should have. And I was in this 2-year relationship and I stayed about 6 months longer. So I'm getting better.
You are. Good job.
But also, I asked my guides for clarity on that too. I said, just show me that this is not going to work. And they did. They just laid out the events that happened. He lived 5.5 hours north of here, and the drive up, I'm like, all right, I'm not sure about this. And they made it really clear. I mean, he did things that he never really had done before, which was interesting. So I'm like, well, okay, this is a sign, and goodbye. Yeah.
So that's the reminder, you guys, is that you ask your guides, you ask the universe, and then you have to pay attention and listen to the subtleties of the signs that they're giving you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And like you said, Reiki dropped in your lap, right? And that's kind of how it starts, is with this drop in our laps of, this cool thing. Your hands start to tingle and buzz, and it's like, oh God, don't let that go away ever. And will it come back? And it's like, and it's trusting, right? It's trusting. It's developing that trust with the universe. Yeah.
And do you feel like, you mentioned like, oh, I was just vibrating after that yoga class, or my hands tingled. Do your chakra areas now tingle more often to give you clues of kind of like, oh, you're headed on the right track, or this, do you know what I'm asking?
Yes, I do. I can feel my chakras doing breath classes. Have you done breath work before? Yeah, I'll get very strong in my chakras then. And how my intuition, though, works now is I will feel it in my heart. I'll feel pain, right? I'll feel pain, or I'll feel like a stuckness in my throat, or I'll feel pain between my shoulder blades, or I'll have a pain radiating down my left arm. And I start asking questions, or I'll just feel drawn to go, to their sacral chakra. And then I start asking questions that pertain to those areas of the body. It's becoming familiar a little bit with energetic anatomy. So we know that the left side of the body is our feminine, the right side is our masculine. How old were you when the sacral chakra was being developed, or the solar plexus? And it's tuning in to the information that you have at hand, right? And then what's happening in yourself, And I would say probably about 98% of the time it's fascinating. So is that intuition, or is that, just knowing things really well?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you don't mind that I share your human design a little bit with the listeners, is that okay?
That's okay.
So Kelly is a 2/4 emotional manifester. And I'm just looking at her chart right now. And so funny that you feel a lot of that intuition somatically in your body, and how you're talking about the heart and the throat. Those are one of the two most defined centers in your chart. They have the most consistent energy for your human design. And you actually have your spleen center completely open, which is the center for intuition and fear and health and wellness. It's the most primal center in human design. And since yours is completely open, you don't have any of your own consistent energy there. But when you're around other people, you pick up on their fears and intuition and health and wellness, and you amplify it. And so I wonder if that resonates with you at all.
Oh, so much. So much. It's really funny. I think that I am really affected by other people, right? So living with my ex for those years, so COVID comes, I had been out of the house for all that time. And the first time I stepped back in the house, all this anger came washing over me. And I was like, oh, wow. I was living in
Mm.
that. So it does resonate. It's so fascinating, right? It's so
Yeah. Yeah.
fascinating. And I had all this time by myself, so I was able to become more clear on what was mine and what wasn't mine. It's like I had a hard
Oh,
break from
yeah.
humanity and being out in crowds with people. I had 30 years of working in healthcare. And when I first started working in some of the modalities that I did and getting rid of, I was on the forefront of the HIV crisis in 86. That was my floor. I was working with those guys, and it was not easy. I was a 22-year-old empathic person picking up, and that went on for years. So it was really
Yeah.
doing energetic cleanup with the energy work and Reiki and yoga and all the things, self-care, self-care, self-care. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. And as a manifester energy type, your energy actually works in surges. You get these like hits of like, oh, I have this idea, I'm going to go for it. And you have this like 200% energy. But then you're actually, when you don't have that, you're supposed to retreat and rest. And
And
the career of nursing, you were probably more in the sacral energy of a generator or a MG, kind of forced to go, go, go. And then you did
mhm.
the triathlon Ironmans on top of that. Like you're just like, you do have a defined heart center, which is this like willpower to go the extra mile to really compete. You are meant to compete. You are meant to be a little bit in your ego in a healthy way. But that engine is supposed to be like the last mile of that Ironman, not every 8 hours or 12 hours, whatever shifts you were working every day.
Yeah, it did take a toll. It did take a toll. I can remember the early
Yeah.
days. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't easy.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a big takeaway from that I'm getting is like, you know, is just bringing the awareness to your energetic body and knowing
Mhm.
that, yeah, we have years and years of being in other people's auras. If you grew up in a big family, and it doesn't mean you need to get away from everybody, just start to have some energetic practices of maybe sitting quietly, releasing what's not yours, or doing yoga and letting yourself kind of release and rinse that
Right.
energy a little bit.
I think there's a nice practice that I learned in meditation, and it's sitting. So you sit and get quiet and kind of do a body scan. It's like, what's me in here and what isn't me in here, right? What is mine and what's not mine? And it's like, okay, all right. So you can kind of feel what's yours, what's not yours. And then it's like, well, let's clean up. Let's get a little vacuum and vacuum out what's not mine. And then this is kind of cute, right? You imagine your name on your forehead, and it can be whatever color you want. It can be the script you want, the glitter, the, bright blue, gold. So you tattoo your forehead with that, and then you imagine that that is draining down into your body, kind of like an hourglass, filling up all those little places that weren't, that you cleared out. And now you're going to fill yourself up, back up with that, with you, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And then getting into feeling your boundaries, feeling your energetic boundary around you and playing with that. And is that wavy? Is it jagged? Is it smooth? How is that? Right. And then sitting in that and using that. I had an interesting experience this last weekend. My brother's autistic and he lives in a group home in Illinois. So my thing with him is we once a year get together. I take him to the Cubs game. And so we went to the Cubs game this weekend. And if you've ever been to Wrigley Field, beautiful. It's a beautiful old stadium. But you go below and it's an old stadium and it's, the hallways are narrow and there's people and it had started to rain and I'm okay. I'm like, all right, here I am. This has been a while since I've been in this kind of crowd. And so I'm like, all right, Kelly, you've got your aura. Got your aura. Let's start pushing that aura out. Let's just push that out, right? And oh, let's push it a little forward, a little bit forward. And all of a sudden, I kid you not, the path just opened. And it's like, I went through the path. I'm like, okay, we are out of here.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah. It was kind of fun to play with.
That's really fun. I love that. So I feel like a common thing people hear about protecting your aura is to envision a white cloud around you or a pink cloud. What do you suggest? Because I have also heard like, well, don't block yourself
Yeah.
completely, like let the beautiful things in.
Well, what do you want in and what don't you want in, right? Are you in a situation that that was a big crowd. I mean, I didn't need all of that stuff, and I don't cocktail party or anything like. I wish I had these skills when I was much younger. I just been so nice. But I think being aware, right? It's this awareness. If all of a sudden you're feeling aware, it's like, oh, I'm feeling this, feeling a little anxious here. This is an interesting thing. Okay, I must be picking up on somebody. It's kind of in those places that it's like, all right, I'm just going to let my aura, shield me up. Do I want it to be gold? Right? Do I want it to be, Archangel Michael purple or something like that, or Archangel Raphael? Let's do some pink. Do I need it to be steel? Where am I at? It's getting in tune. When I walk out the door, do I put myself in a bubble? I don't do that all the time, at all. I kind of also like to live life, right? And what's coming and what's going.
That's beautiful. I feel like what I'm really hearing from you through your journey is that you've really found the middle space between being connected to source or the divine and also like really walking your human experience and being grounded.
I try. Thank you. Yeah.
It's different every day, right?
I think I don't know if that shows up in my design, but a planner I am not, right? It's like I can manifest things and then let them go.
That's actually exactly what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to manifest things, and then the other energy types can take over. It's all about collaboration. And so it's good that you've learned that for yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny. And I kind of felt bad about myself for that for a while before I knew this. It's like Oregon has this kids triathlon. I started that thing. I mean, I birthed that puppy. And then I was done. I was like, I don't want this anymore. This is too much. I don't want this in my life. And I thought, am I crazy for doing this? But yeah.
No, that's 100% correct for your energy type. So you're living it and you're listening, and that's great. I want to tell you one other thing about your chart because it just blew my mind that you went from a nursing career, which is hands-on, to the healing modalities, yoga and Reiki, which is also hands-on. And there aren't that many careers anymore where we actually physically touch each other, right? Where we put our hands on another being. And it's actually your sun gate, which makes up like 70% of what you've come here to express. This is your gift to humanity. And it is gate 37, which is called the gate of friendship. You possess the gifts of warmth, friendliness, and a nurturing spirit that bring people together. You have the ability to emotionally connect with people through physical touch and sense someone's inherent openness. You will be sought after to represent a company or organization to welcome newcomers.
That's amazing.
I looked at that today and I was like, you can't make this up. I mean, this is your most prominent gift. It literally talks about hands-on touch and that you will be needed to create a community, which you've done with Wishing Tree Studio.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
So cool.
Our tagline is rooted in community. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's your vibe. That is for sure the vibe you're bringing.
Cool. Nice.
So what are you looking forward to over, we're finishing up summer here, we're going into 2024. What do you have on your plate moving forward?
Oh my gosh. Some things I'm not sure I can talk about.
Okay.
Not yet, at least. Well, it is growing a community and that will be happening. And when I can, I would love to come back and talk about it. And so it's some things going down.
That would be lovely.
Yeah. It's some exciting things coming on. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, you can keep us in suspense. Okay. I am totally fine with that.
Thank you.
It's been so lovely chatting with you today and just getting to hear your story and your evolution. And you're an example of somebody who went there. You heard the call, you felt the need in your 40s, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to listen to my heart. I'm going to ground into the earth, and I'm going to let my soul and my guides
Yeah.
and myself lead me there,
Thank
which
you.
is really beautiful.
Yeah. Don't ignore your heart.
Yeah.
Don't ignore your heart. Don't ignore your
Yeah.
gut. Yeah. Yeah. Follow
Mm.
it. Thank you. It's been beautiful. It's been fun.
It's been really fun. Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Dayna.
Ordinary Magic is a Lit Path Studios production, produced by Jamie Gale and Dayna Faye. Music is by Shane Ivers. Until next time, I wish you many powerful moments of ordinary magic.